Britain's famously gloomy skies have been a little clearer over the past week. For the first time since the 1880s, the United Kingdom did not burn any coal to power anything. It's an achievement officials say will soon become the norm.
As more and more renewables come onto our energy system, coal-free runs like this are going to be a regular occurrence.
The UK has steadily reduced its use of the commodity. It's become less profitable due to carbon taxes, the declining cost of alternatives, and the enormous long-term anticipated cost of climate change. Coal plants provided just 5% of the nation's energy last year. That's down from 30% in 2014. By 2025, the UK wants to stop using it entirely. About 46% of the country's power now comes from natural gas, which, though not renewable, emits half as much greenhouse gas as coal. It's also investing in solar and wind power. The UK is already the world leader in offshore wind power production. The UK also plans to build new nuclear plants, which will replace the stable power supply that coal facilities provide. The British Parliament declared a climate emergency this month, a first for any wealthy nation.
Coal powered the first industrial revolution in Britain, but it was done on the backs of the working class at the expense of our environment. So the green industrial revolution will be both unwinding those injustices, harnessing manufacturing to avert climate breakdown, as well as providing well-paid, good-skilled and secure jobs.
Corbyn called on the government to set a zero emissions goal by 2050, which will require removing natural gas from the mix. 8 European countries led by France have also asked the EU to adopt a similar target. But with resistance from coal-reliant countries like Germany and Poland, it's unclear whether the bloc will follow suit. Paolo Montecillo, TRT World.
Well, let's get more on this now with David Elmes, head of the Global Energy Research Group at Warwick Business School. Good to have you back on the program, David. Tell us a bit more about how the UK managed to get to this point, a whole week without producing coal-powered energy.
Well, it's actually slightly longer than a week. It was 8 days, 1 hour and 5 minutes. There's a long history here where the UK has been looking at the coal-fired power stations that have been providing electricity, and many of those stations were getting old. They were also polluting, and so as part of wider regulation across Europe, plans were put in place to progressively remove the coal-fired power stations from the mix. And that's been enabled by, first of all, the ability to use affordable gas. So as your item said, that during this period, about sort of 46% of the UK energy came from gas, and also increasing use of renewables. And so it is part of an energy transition where the UK is moving away from fossil fuels that have high emissions, through a period where, yes, we'll be using gas for a while, but ultimately to low carbon or even zero carbon power.
Interesting. So in the long run, obviously this has great environmental benefits, but will it also end up saving the UK government money as well?
So the question is, yeah, this transition needs to happen in a way that's affordable. You know, the UK consumer is currently paying a bit more in their bills to support a transition to low carbon fuels, but those bills need to be kept affordable. And so it is things like the way that UK is investing in offshore wind, and we've seen the cost of offshore wind come down significantly in a matter of years. And so it is about making that energy transition not just because it's for issues of emissions and sustainability, but it needs to be affordable. So it will take place over some time.
So would you say that the UK's example could be one that's used in markets like Australia, which are still heavily reliant on burning coal because they say it's too expensive to move away from coal? Do you think Australia could learn from the UK experience?
Well, so you look at it as being a transition. It's not immediately stopping one thing and starting another. And so the key point in the UK's experience has been this transition to increasing the use of gas on the way to using more renewables. And certainly Australia as a country produces a lot of gas. So if in many ways there's nothing to stop Australia starting to make a transition to lower carbon by increasing the gas in the mix. And the other thing that's interesting and certainly is relevant in Australia is this idea that, well, moving away from having big power stations and moving to what's called decentralized energy, where you have energy that is produced, stored and used in a much more local way. PV panels on your roof is an example, but it's taking that a bit further. And Australia is looking like being one of those countries where we'll see a significant shift away from big centralized power systems to things being done in a much more distributed way, and that will enable a transition to lower carbon fuels.
Okay, David Elmes, head of the Global Energy Research Group at Warwick University, thank you so much for your time.